Reviewing Bounty Bob Strikes Back is really the tale of two periods with the game. That is to say, the experience can be very different depending on the amount of time you're willing to spend with it, and your ability to decipher and alter the options to your liking. Programmed by Robert DeCresenzo for Atari in late 2024, Bounty Bob Strikes Back is a port of a sequel to Miner 2049er that was released very early into the history of video games. And it's kind of a head-scratcher why this sequel was released on the 7800 rather than the arguably more approachable original. But regardless of head-scratches, programming, and release dates, I'm here to review this version of a cult classic for the Atari 7800 and the new Atari 7800 Plus console. So let's see if it's worth picking up for your 7800 Plus, and I'll even be generous and give a few tips and tricks to get the most out of the game. But enough intro stuff, let's dive right into the review. Bounty Bob Strikes Back is the main game I was looking forward to with the announcement of the 7800 Plus and its original complement of games. It was the only game in the lineup that wasn't previously available either on Atari Age or via Atari themselves back in the day. And it was programmed by the Atari 7800 homebrew GOAT, Pac-Man Plus, aka Robert DeCresenzo. Seriously, this guy has made a ton of excellent 7800 games, including the pack-in for the 7800 Plus, Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest. The guy kept interest alive in the console when nobody else seemed to care, and I personally love him for that. And I get excited for his games when they're announced, but Bounty Bob Strikes Back feels like an odd game to choose to port to the console. But regardless, I received the cartridge and plopped it into my brand spanking new 7800 Plus, even before the pack-in game, and it's pretty evident right from the start that Bob stayed true to the original game. That is to say, I don't think he took many opportunities to improve things, at least graphically. And the 7800 could definitely do more in my opinion. But Bob is always about authenticity, and the game isn't really ugly per se, just kinda blocky. It's pretty evident what things are, or at least what should be done with them. When you start the game, you're the hat-wearing fellow in the lower middle of the screen, and the little Goomba-style guys are the enemies. You collect objects, and similar to Pac-Man, the enemies will change color and design, showing that they are vulnerable to being destroyed after you pick things up. As you move, you will also notice that the platforms will start to fill in with color. And this is ultimately your goal. Fill in all the platforms with color before the time ticks down to 0, or before losing all your lives via fall damage in the enemies. And yes, there is fall damage. And that's something I absolutely despise in video games. I hated that about so many early platforming games. But back to the graphics, everything looks passable, if not just a little disappointing in my opinion. It all screams 5200 to me, and I just wish more had been done to take advantage of the 7800, and to get me excited in picking up the 7800 Plus. But purists will be pleased that things stayed true to the originals, and I don't find the game offensive graphically. And the audio isn't bad either if I'm honest, but it's sparse. The 7800 isn't known for robust sound, which is obviously one of the reasons the NES trounced it back in the late 80s. But there are nice, adventurous tunes that play and some decent sound effects. One in particular is a bit grating to me, and it seems to be used more often than I would have liked, but overall it's nothing to really complain about. Like I said, the sound is sparse overall, and what's here is more often good than bad. The gameplay, however, is going to be decisive for most people. If you're used to modern games and gaming sensibility, then controlling Bounty Bob is going to feel just wrong. Without toying or turning on any options, he feels stiff and jumps at specific arcs that doesn't feel satisfying. Quite the opposite. It can be frustrating to platform with Bob. And that's not good for a single-screen platforming game. I have to say that my initial hour with Bounty Bob Strikes Back was soundly negative. I hate the way the gameplay felt, and I only made it past the first level maybe 2 times, and then I was just quickly killed in the next lift stage. I shut the game off in disgust and moved on to something else. But I knew I wanted to review this game, and I have to find some way to persevere. And as silly as it is, my savior was in the options menu that I had ignored up to this point. There are some nice options here outside of the basic, expected ones. Of course, you can choose players, difficulty, and the number of lives, but Pac-Man Plus wisely added in things like, well, how many points it takes to get your bonus guy, and best of all, steerable, which allows you to steer your jumps. If I was you, And I'm not, but if I was, I would enable this steerable option from the start and never look back. This will allow you to progress much further in the game and make things much more fun overall. If you've been playing with steerable disabled, then it might be difficult to get accustomed to the new jumping, but it's much better regardless. With this steerable option toggled on, I was able to make it to the 5th or 6th level routinely. And the challenge was still there, mind you. The game is very old school in that aspect, and you're going to get a little further every time you play. And it's rewarding in that aspect. It's cool getting to a new level that you've never seen before after persevering through the game. But I doubt this is going to be for everybody, even with this steerable option toggled on. And again, there is fall damage, and it's going to frustrate some people regardless. And the controls can be a bit finicky at times, especially with the 7800 Plus pack and controller. Now maybe it was just me, but sometimes I would go through doors when I didn't intend to. I'm not going to hold it against the game, but I wanted to mention it. And I didn't have this problem with the superior OGHUGO 2-button 7800/2600 gamepad from its eBay store. Link in the description, great low price. Oh man, sorry about that. But anyway, I think some people are going to quit this game early on, regardless of the options, and that's because it's very much a game steeped in the old school style of platformers. And it won't be for everybody. But I encourage you to stick with it, because the game is actually quite rewarding to learn and progress through. Making it to a new screen feels well earned, and it's an experience I really started to look forward to. And there is a lot of game here for the money. Of all the 7800 games released alongside the 7800 Plus, I think this one has the longest potential longevity. But there's no accounting for taste, and it's a game that I learned to love, much like Scrapyard Dog. Bounty Bob Strikes Back initially frustrated me, and made me want to quit. But it grew on me like many old school games do. And when I learned to play by its rules, slow down just a tiny bit, and take on the game the way the developer intended me to, I found a great experience to be had. Like I said, if you want to get the most out of it, but you're not enjoying the experience, then turn steerable on, and lower the extra life score so you get it sooner. Then take your time, think before navigating the obstacles, and just push through. And you will encounter new obstacles like the tubes that suck you in the second you touch them. So you may want to make sure that the enemies are vulnerable before you commit to sucking into these tubes. And the slides will send you down whether you want them to or not, so make sure you're careful where you land when jumping. You want to do that anyway to avoid the horrible fall damage. But with those small tips, I think that's all I have to say about Bounty Bob Strikes Back by Atari and Robert DeCresenzo. So let's take the game into the patented Atari Network pros and cons section to see if it earns a favorable score or not. For the pros, I like how the game cycles through colors each time you start a stage. It adds a little charm to everything. And I appreciate the options menu and its many, many choices. Mess around with some of these and see what happens, but I recommend turning steerable on no matter what else you do. The game does grow on you, and once you get used to it, you'll find a lot to enjoy and play for the money. And the sound is mostly good too, and the short tunes are nice sounding. But with that, we're on to the cons, and I want to start by saying that this game is difficult. It's tough to get anywhere at first, and it's very much an old school platformer. The fall damage is frustrating, and you won't make it far at all, at least your first few tries. There is one sound that I found grating, and the graphics are a tad bit archaic looking, even for the 7800. I wish some improvements had been done. But with all that said, I have to give Bounty Bob Strikes Back for the Atari 7800 2 Proline controllers out of 5. Now you might see that score and think that there's something wrong with the game, but really there isn't. It's solid, but it's difficult and frustrating. I think the majority of people aren't going to want to go back to this one after one or two tries, and I would usher them to buy something different. Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest, Frenzy, Berserk, and Space Duel will probably be better suited for these people. But if you like tough as nails, old school platformers, then this one is available for the first time on the Atari 7800. So pick it up if that's what you want, but don't say I didn't warn you. And with that, well, now I want to hear from all of you. Do you agree with my score, or am I way off base? Should the game have gotten a 3 out of 5, Or is this a good argument to start doing 0.5 scores like 2.5, 3.5, etc.? Did you own this game back in the day for any other platforms? And if so, is this version true to those? And will you be picking this one up if you haven't yet? Let me know about all this and more in the comments down below. And please consider becoming a Patreon or YouTube member. Thanks to them, this channel is able to continue to go and grow strong. We just did a high score competition where I was able to commission some custom Atari 7800 trophy cartridges that work in actual 7800 consoles. Thank you to everybody that participated, and congratulations to the winners, Crypto Coffee, HugeAss79, and Red Dog Games. Thank you to everybody who participated, and thank you to the Patreons and members for making this happen. Join the Atari Network Discord server so you can be a part of the next competition or giveaway, or just chat with fellow Atarians. And with that, it's time to wrap up this review on the channel. I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a grizzly miner working in the crypto mines here at the Atari Network, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. And please remember to stay classy, Atarians.